So GAE Vacarja agus the Falgerol, quick on session Trinona Erna Gampi Sari, Kincha Gomanashiv Tarva As. You're all very welcome to our online training session this evening as you look forward to commencing your summer camps programs in your schools very shortly. We're gathered as a group here this evening to try and offer best advice, support and guidance to you as you prepare and plan for the DEIS literacy and numeracy camps August na Gampi Sari. During the webinar, we share ideas with you, direct you towards useful resources and answer any queries you may have. We'll be discussing the supports that are available to you as you plan your summer camp, amongst which are the Teacher's Handbook, so that's on our second slide, and the Pupil Self-Assessment Booklet. Everything you will need to guide you is contained in the Summer Camp Teacher's Handbook, which will guide and assist you as you plan, prepare for and facilitate your summer camp programme. We'll guide you towards the pertinent points in the handbook over the course of the webinar. We'll also place all the relevant links to resources and guidelines in the chat, and you can copy and paste these directly from there. The handbook offers practical ideas to support effective teaching and learning with an emphasis on playful and engaging learning experiences. We also have a NEPS recording, which we'll make available to you on the websites, which deals with the well-being aspects and the trauma-informed practice aspects of your camps also. There are suggestions in the handbook for practical assessment strategies and throughout the webinar, which you may use during the camp, a self-assessment booklet in which the children are encouraged to reflect on their own learning is available on both of our websites in Navan and in Dublin West. You can download this booklet directly from the websites for pupils to use daily in the camp as a form of AOL or AFL. We do welcome your questions this evening, which we invite you to post in the Q&A. We'll reserve the chat this evening for our additional supports and links. And we'll be dealing with a lot of the content this evening, the planning, the design, logistics of your camps, as well as the roles of organizer, manager, teaching roles, parental involvement and student voice, and of course, the pedagogical aspects of the camp, timetabling and camp activities throughout the course of the webinar. So many of your questions and queries, I'd imagine, will be answered during the course of the webinar. We have a wonderful team involved in the delivery of the camps in Campi Sauri. We come together pretty early in the new year, and a lot of planning goes into this evening's event and indeed the whole camp programme and all of the guidelines. We are all on hand this evening to help to answer your queries in the Q&A and to encourage and affirm you. And of course, finally, we offer end-to-end support to all schools in preparing for your programmes, but also during the course of your camps. We offer email and telephone supports through our coordinators, the wonderful Dahi Overku for the Campi Sauri and Alan Nelson for the English camps. So speaking of our wonderful team, I'll hand over to Ultan now, who will introduce you to our panel for this evening. Thanks, Ultan.
So, good of Mila Mahagat Aideen. Aideen, as you know, is director of the Education Centre in Navan. I'm the director of the Education Centre in Dublin West. And this evening's panel, Dahi O'Murrachu and Alan Nelson are our coordinators. You will notice in due course that both Dahi and Alan are wearing the same shirt. It's not a rule that they have to wear matching shirts. They've just chosen to do that for the evening. And we thank you for that coordination from our coordinators. So we've got Kathy Butler and Ciara Rowley, who are our presenters with some practical experience from their own schools. From PDST, we've David O'Callaghan, Cruthor Lira, August Joseph Macanyumra. From the department, we have Carmel O'Doherty and Debbie Newman, and Nigella may join us in due course. We have Deirdre McHugh, Michelle McCarthy, and Theresa Tierney also contributing. And Joan Shanky and Siobhan Kerr are our admin superheroes in the education centres who are helping us along this evening. I'd like to thank all of the team for their hard work in preparation for this evening and in their way helping us run great camps to help the most vulnerable of our children. Gur mil mahagav. Gur mé raig sibanish the Shlaunan iver a car. Now.
So Gur mahagav Ultan. So just going through the overall aim of this session is to support you so that you can successfully plan and run a summer camp in your school. It's been designed to help you to become familiar with the vision, the principles, domains and criteria of the camp. And I know a lot of you are familiar with this already, but for our newer camps, this will be very useful run through this evening. We'll also explore the teaching approaches, preparation and assessment that underpin the summer camp programme. We'll explore opportunities, resources, ideas, which you may apply in your preparation for your summer camp. It's important to remember that you're the best place to plan in accordance to your own school's context and the students in your school. Your school's DEIS plan, as well as the looking at our school quality framework for primary schools, will guide you in preparing for identified needs in both literacy and numeracy relevant to your own school. So I'm going to hand to Dahi now, who's going to take you through the vision of our camp programme.
Good evening, Vietnam. Oh, wrong film. August. Yeah, Alhasorum Alton Gul to Trisha Shinalua. Myself and Alan definitely have decided to kind of go twin side. I'm Danny DeVito and he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, just to make it up. What an incredible evening to be stuck in doing this. But the reason we're doing it is there are 876 of you there. And we as a team are so excited. My God, how many years has this been that we have been together, many of you, and many of you are new and looking forward to others. Ladina Tancho na Campi Gaelgata Firkin Fought the Roiv. And to all of the Campi, thank you so much to Navan and Dublin West, to Aideen and Ulton for the vision and the key message. And what is that vision? It's the same vision we've had for a long time. Is Federling. And Is Federling didn't come from Obama. It came from us during the tough times, because it's about changer la vie d'un seul enfant, change the life of one child. And having been principal of a DEIS school for so long and many others, that's what we do. And our vision and key message is all about building confidence and connections. That's what we're doing this year. So the aim of our camp is to provide that rich educational experience for pupils, all pupils. Many of you this year have pupils from direct provision, from war-torn countries, from Ukraine, from Central Africa, from the East. My God, Ireland has changed so much, and the equity, inclusivity, the equality of education, and that sense of educational experience will be so rich this year that we want to foster that sense of belonging, creativity, and confidence in their learning. So get them out there. Let them build this confidence and connections. Let them be alive, vibrant in that play environment. Cahir is going to really get stuck in there. And indeed, Kathy and Kira are all going to share these with you. But it is an opportunity for us in the schools to reach out to pupils and to further support their well-being. That's where NEPS comes in, and their engagement in education in a unique and interactive way. We're going to talk about that. So, good evening, Vietnam. Arrigling Aideen.
Thanks a million. And look, thanks for setting out the overall vision and aims there for us. But just at this stage, I think it's really useful to point out, folks, that any resources or advice or suggestions that come up are going to be shared with you. And you can see on the screen, we have 2 Padlets in relation to the Campus Outreach. And we also have a Dropbox that Dahi has very kindly put together. So on the left-hand side, we just have a graphic there of the Campus Outreach Padlet, and there are various resources on literacy, on numeracy, on Gaeilge, on playful learning, which is a huge part of the Campus Outreach. We also have some well-being resources. And then on the very right-hand side, you can just about see it. You also have some Campus Outreach documents, so the various guidance documents that you need. So the link to these Padlets is going to be shared in the chat box. So you're going to have that from the outset. Just on the right-hand side there, we have also a Padlet in relation to TLIL. So that's really, really useful as well. So they're all there, and I suppose that puts you at ease, maybe in the sense that you don't have to be, I suppose, scrambling for the various resources. They've all been put together to you for the sake of your convenience. So I'm going to hand you over to Cahir, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks, folks.
David. Accord just spoke to one some Mialler and Padlet and Sunfree Clill. If you hadn't considered it before, you might consider organising some activities to bhean na Gaeilge leis na páistí chumá. Bhean anna himplí na héag bhfuil míad géirí Gaeilge anna dheachar nó chasta a bhúna den na daltaí, but dámbeach sibh ag smaoinemh beidir ábhar eile a bhúna to bhean na Gaeilge nó agrú to bhean na Gaeilge tá anna chud smaointeann san sa Padlet sin Clill. So again, that'll be available to you. It's in the chat box and it'll be available in the Dropbox as well. So if we move on there to the next slide, please, Alton agus Meet the 4 overarching principles of the summer camp. So I think we might have a bit of a technical glitch there.
We do, for some reason. I'm trying to get out of this one and I cannot get out of this slide. We'll try down here. Bear with me, please.
Yeah, just now I just continue while
yeah, let it have.
I'm misbehaving there, Ultimate and Carcolor. So lads, those of you who have done the camps before will be very familiar with the 4 overarching principles of the summer camp. They may be new to some of you, but you'll recognize them in our own practices and our own philosophies of education and how we teach as well. So the first, I suppose, the first overarching principle is that language learning occurs in a playful and interactive way. And that will be familiar to those of us who have engaged with the ASHTA framework, who are engaging with the primary language curriculum as well. That's great, Ultim Gurmagat. So we can see there on the top right-hand corner, the second overarching principle then is that the pupils are seen as co-designers of the summer camp. And once again, throughout the course of this evening, we'll be coming up with some ideas for you that could maybe help to engage the pupils in selecting what kind of activities, what kind of learning they would like to participate in as well. So motivation and choice being a huge part of the primary language curriculum, motivation and choice are also a huge overarching principle of the summer camp. The third principle then we see down here on the right-hand corner is that learning, teaching and assessment, of course, reflect and impact on school practice. And in a lot of the testimonials, in a lot of the chats that we've had with people who have run summer camps in the past, this comes through time and time again, that what goes on in the summer camps is really reflected, say, in the teaching and in the learning in the subsequent months in September and on. And finally, then the fourth overarching principle is that the pupils' well-being and sense of belonging, of course, are central to the camp. We're always going to bear this in mind when we're planning any sort of activity, when we're planning any sort of excursion. It's a sense of belonging and well-being amongst the pupils. Now, these 4 overarching principles are set out then in 4 domains that you see in the center of this graphic, and these underpin the summer camp program, and there'll be relevant considerations, I suppose, in your own preparations as well. So once again, we're looking at clear, defined learner outcomes. Once again, we refer back to the primary language curriculum, we refer back to the ASHTA framework in the provision of playful learning experiences. Camp management, we'll be discussing that as well. And also we'll be discussing with some guests as well, the varied learning environments that we can provide for our students. So, Gana Hill and Willinson, Rakame Araganson, Craig Dahi, agus Big Dahi Lower and some people vanish Dicht and Compa.
So, Alton, I'm fiddling Delarig. So, the camp organizer. This was the new role, guys, and it's the one that kicked in the very beginning. And again, the whole idea with this is that the summer program training, organizing materials and resources. I think you're well able to read this. The idea of staff recruitment. This new position was to prepare. Someone said to me to define this position. I said, it's like a womb. You're carrying everything before the actual camp begins, before the birth of the camp. The job of the camp organizer, who can also be the camp manager, was to get everything ready beforehand. Also to ensure that if new teachers were to come in from outside your staff, they were adequately prepared. They knew the ethos, the vision of the school with childcare when it came to the idea of child protection, that they were familiar with and adept at everything that was happening within that mission and vision of your school. The whole idea of the collaborative planning with the manager and the facilitator and students and parents to know how to choose these students, which a lot of you would still possibly be doing at this moment, if not already sorted out. And the camp organizer is ready to hand over to the manager. And that's the difference in that position this year, even though the camp organizer can also be that manager. The designing of the timetables, the organizing of the transport, the working with the homeschool community liaison teacher, and then, as I said, developing the programs for the activities. This allows us to also integrate that with our school's vision for our DEIS camp. So this new position is something that some of you are already running. And the whole idea here was to give teachers in the school an opportunity to actually experience types of transformational management in the school. And again, if in doubt, go to the terms and conditions of the booklet that was sent out, or in the actual Laur dun na Campi Gaeilge agus Laur dun na Campi in the camp booklet. So next one, Alton, please. The program manager on the other side, this is the person then who is in situ at all times during the camp, to be liaison with the department, with the idea of it doesn't matter, with the parents. The point of contact of the whole program would be the program manager. That is the face that's in front of the camp when it begins. The liaison with the staff, and of course, taking it on from the organizer, ensuring that smooth running of the program and the optimum use of resources. So again, if in doubt, Navan Education Centre in Dublin West have the Padlets, have the actual drop boxes with a huge amount of resources there to engage, enable, and empower, so that we can have an effective, meaningful sense of building that confidence and connections, which is the vision of our Comp-B. Then, of course, dealing with any issues that may arise, particularly, we'll be talking about it later, if there are children who are not turning up, ensuring that there are spare kids in case the attendance would fall, and the optimum use of ensuring that everything is working to the best it possibly can. The returns that need to be done in the EasyNet, and ensuring that, for example, if there are 2 people that would sign in, that all of this is relevant to the course so that people can have their names in there, or the team can actually put in their details to ensure that they will be paid on time. Again, go back to the terms and conditions or the summer camp booklet, everything is contained within. And then at the end, ensuring the evaluations are returned to the department and to Dublin West and Navan, and they're completed by the education centres. Should we say, when we get them from you, we then must compile them, because that's it. And when the Kiggery come out to visit, and they will come out to visit camps, it's important that the program manager is there at all times to be available for anyone that comes in. So in many ways, the organizer, should we say, the first role is a very specific one, and the manager second. So Ciara, can I actually call you in at this particular moment to give your experience in a rural school of how you took care of this, shall we say, last year, and maybe this year as well, please?
Thanks, Dahi. Yeah, so I'm principal of a small DEIS rural school, and we just set up our first camp 2 years ago. And at that point last year, of the last 2 years, my role was called an overseer. So I suppose it incorporated some of the roles there that you've outlined, Dahi, for both organizer and manager. So this year, actually, I am organizer and manager in my particular school, because I've always recruited external teachers to work on the camp. It's just because some of the teachers here have previous commitments. It suits us to bring in some external teachers, and that's worked really well for us, because as a small school, I suppose children maybe have the same teacher for a number of years, and it's a novelty for them to have different teachers here to engage them in playful learning experiences in literacy and numeracy, and it has worked really well for us here. So that's one thing we do, that we bring in the other teachers, and I suppose I'm involved in selecting the pupils, selecting our target pupils who we want to in particular to come to the camp. I liaise with their parents. I communicate with them about when they'll come, and also parents have said that they're happy that their children are here, that I'm here present at all times as the permanent member of staff. So yeah, all of that has worked well for us. As you've outlined there, I've engaged with the education centres, I've sent evaluations back, organised payment of teachers, which was very prompt last year, actually. And just to be present every day and to get to chat to the children. And from my perspective as well, I'm a teaching principal, so it's a really nice time for me to take a step back and be involved more as a manager and an organizer, and to just get that chance to engage with the children more informally, and just to be present at all times.
Here we go, Mila Margaret, and Alton, if we can go on to the next slide, please. And just to say, the organizer is a fixed fund this year, again, which is clearly outlined in the summer camp, and the teachers are paid at the rates at which they would normally work. And again, that is very clearly laid out in the terms and conditions. So if in doubt, go back to the Bible. Remember, every course has a Bible, and the Bible is the summer camp booklet in this case. And all of these are available on the website in both centres. So shall we say where the teachers are concerned? The activities for the DEIS literacy and numeracy camps, again, are provided over the 22.5 hours over the course of the actual week. And the starting time, again, I think we know this is no later than 10 a.m. and there are 4 hours of instruction that need to be provided each day. In addition, a total of 30 minutes is set aside for each day to fully supervise lunch break period. Now, in the past, guys, there have been some Muntori Donna out there who've tried to snake in that 30 minutes as part of the Rangana. That 30 minutes is set aside each day to fully supervise the lunch break period. And that's a huge opportunity, as Crahor and David will lay out, to also get in if you're doing the piece of Reige, or maybe you could do on Alm Itche Trivan Reige to choose that particular time. But the important thing is 22.5 hours of the actual week is there, plus that 30 minutes each day for that lunch break period. And a healthy lunch should be provided in consultation with the pupils. Many schools go back to their providers of, let's say, it could be Fresh Today, Carambola, it could be Glanmore, it could be any of these, and they get a special deal. And for that, €45 has been given, already sent out from the centres, for the actual per student per week. And that funding is to be used for the meals and for any extra materials that you would use. So you have X amount of pupils, 12 for one teacher, 24 for two, 36 for three, multiplied by 45. Where breakfast is provided, let's say it does not take away from the hours of instruction. There were a couple of camps that have kind of read this, but this is straightforward. If there's a breakfast time, that is not the start time of the camp. In the lunchtime, that is not part of the instructional time. So again, let's be kind of clear on this. And if in doubt, go to the Bible. Okay. And Alton and Kate Carnell, the hug. So the parental involvement is so important, because this is all about the DEIS camp. It's about bringing our communities together. Make contact with the parents to inform them of the theme and the activities of the camp. The actual little booklet the children have, a question popped up there, is it important or is it compulsory? And I hate that word, that students should fill in the booklet. The little booklet that you have with the kids for each day, that they write down their feelings, their thoughts, their reflection, i.e. the literacy or various things they do. By bringing that home to the parents can put down their thoughts on it. This was a great day for Johnny or for Mary or for Abdullah or for Adike, and it was a fantastic thing. It means there's a connection between the camp and the families, and that is building the whole idea of the DEIS, bringing our whole school communities together. Provide families with summer reading lists of books available in the library, and also a lot of libraries will give you a stamp, so the kids can get a stamp with each book they read. And an awful lot of them have these beautiful little booklets right now. So maybe when you're going to that visit to the library, maybe some of the parents are there and can sit down with them if you're going to do it. And hopefully every one of you will do that court Chun na Laurelana. It's such an incredible place to go when you get that opportunity. But remember, phone up your library beforehand. Make sure they're expecting you. Do not arrive down with 36 kids and go, "Good evening, Vietnam," because that ain't going to work. Trust me, we've had librarians come at us before. Poor Aideen and Alton have had their hair pulled out. So let's make this work. Also, include suggested activities they could do at home. So you might send them home a little bit of Obervalia. Maybe, okay, guys, I want you to look at maybe 10 minutes of maybe Kula Kahar or something like that on Teacher Kahar, or I want you to look at a particular cartoon or program tonight and put down the name of the program and write down one sentence that made you excited about the program or one sentence that made you feel sad about it. So again, bringing that literacy, that numeracy, go home and see how many things are here to home to bring it back into the school, that connection. Invite families then towards the end of the week, many of them due to the show and tell, to allow opportunities for pupils to safely showcase their activities. It's a fantastic opportunity. I'm sure Alan and Kathy and Ciara will share these, when normally on the last day, it can be everything from singing songs, like up in St. Joseph's. Alan used to hop around the yard like Arnold Schwarzenegger, singing songs with the kids, and the parents used to love to come in on a Friday and see that show and tell, and see what had been done during the week with the activities, whether it was the technology or utilizing everything from artificial intelligence backgrounds with the art to musical reproductions of certain things. It was fabulous. So during the events, provide the books, the journals, other literacy, numeracy supplies as prizes. With that money, buy the prizes. Our favorite thing every year is a book of 500 tickets. Get the kids doing the right things. End of the day, if you want to buy a pound Louis, it costs you 5 tickets. 5 little tickets gets you a pound Louis at the end of the day in the shopper. And that works wonders, because they'll have to say, maybe you have a sentence written up, Diarit, on Feder Lat, Pound Louis a Hortum Led Hull. Leave out the blank. On Feder Lat, can you please give me a pencil? So it's communication, it's building social skills. And the 500 tickets, each time you catch them doing the right thing, give them one. Have your values for the prizes, buy tickets, and maybe have one big prize worth 100 tickets. Now be careful, because some kids will swipe and steal from other kids. Not that that ever happens, duh. During the events, the important thing is host the fun activities, get them out in the air, get them hugging trees, get them into the reflectivity, and then have fun on working on the curriculum activities together apart. And Alan, don't do what you did one year with the lovely new teacher you brought in, turn on the microwaves and the bloody alarms started going off while I was in the school. And then we realized, holy moly. So have fun. It's a summer camp, parental involvement. Next one, Leda Hulton. So, domain 4, who am I handing over to here? Or maybe it's me again, because we've jumped the slides up by 2. So if it is me and the success criteria of the camp management, then the important thing I would say is the camp organizer, the main person in there right now, ensure that the teachers and the pupils have a role in planning the camp. So that new role that was there, it's all about collaborative working together, teamwork, what we call the community of practice, a COP. The environment in which we find ourselves is normally within the school. But again, like Ciara would have said, if a teacher comes in from the outside, let them know the rules. If there's a fire drill, let them know the exits, ensure that there's a bathroom, that there is a sense that we're doing a summer camp, but we haven't let the lunatics free in the asylum. This is a summer camp, a campus Saurig, and we do things here, okay? So a safe, healthy learning environment is established from the outset. So don't be afraid to go into your lines in the morning. Don't be afraid to bring the children in, shall we say, as if they were not at school, but under the same ethos that you expect from them, what they would expect from you. Also, full attendance and punctuality are promoted every single day, and strategies are published for that. So, for example, having the phone numbers of the parents, why the kids are not turning up, they should be there, ringing them up, ensuring that they are turning up, and also rewarding maybe kids in the morning who do turn up on time with maybe one of those tickets, so that we're promoting positive punctuality and attendance. And if the numbers fall, having the backup children there to fill those places so that at all times you're getting maximum usage. And that happens every year. Okay, optimal use is made of the funds, like we said, €45. It's for materials and healthy food. Do a deal with your food provider in the school. They're happy to do a deal. It's extra work for them. The materials you buy, go down to Mr. Price, go down to any of the shops that are out there. They love small yolks, tiny little things. They'll kill for an eraser or a pound Louis or Rodegant Marchin. They love that. And going home with that prize is hugely positive affirmament again of confidence and connections, the vision of our camp. And the team plans daily to deliver high quality learning experiences. At the end of the day, the teaching team to stay together to do a bit of reflective thinking and how can we improve this? How can we share this? How can we make this a wonderful, incredible, meaningful, joyful, soulful learning experience? And that's also giving parents the opportunity to be part of that and the community involvement. So, and I know we'll be talking later on with Kathy, she'll talk about ways that we can actually involve the community by going out to the community, even if you're going on one of the day trips. Go into something in the community that connects the school with the community. These are the successful criteria for your camp management. Each one of you knows your school. So what are your criteria? The important thing is build confidence and connections. And what do you need to do to have that effective camp management? Perfect practice makes perfect. So sit down, look at it, discuss it with the parents and the kids and the teachers, and hit the ground running. Kate Cownella, please. Next slide. Child safeguarding, I suppose, at all times. When the kidder walks in the front door, I can tell you now, he or she or they will immediately look to see who is the DLP and the DDLP. At all times, there has to be someone assigned and a deputy assigned, and there will be a notice at the entrance and the exit, so that at all times that is very clear. Also, when the kidder will come, they'll be looking to do a check on child, shall we say, child protection. They'll be looking to do a child level 1. And that has happened in the past for those of you who are there. So ensure that you have the policies there that are relevant. And again, if in doubt, go back to the booklet. It's all explained within. The appropriate training for the acting DLP and the DDLP needs to be undertaken for their roles prior to the commencement of the summer programme. If in doubt, come back to the education centres. But it is important that at all times it is clear who is taking those roles. In accordance with the 2017 procedures and the school's risk assessment and child safeguarding statement, you should take into account any summer programme activity or service to specify the risks of harm identified and the procedures that are in place to manage those risks. So, for example, if I take what we used to do, we would walk around the yards and the areas we would go, we would identify within the school plan if there were areas of risk, and we would have a little plan or a map put up to say, look, don't go over into those bushes, or don't go here, or don't try this one, or these are the areas that are there, so that they're done in accordance with the procedures. And that's what will be looked at. Have we done that? I suppose, have we looked at those risks, and have we mitigated for those risks? And procedures need to be in place to ensure that, again, within the anti-bullying policy and procedures, that they're implemented and adhered to during the summer programme, and that the principal of the school, if he, she or they are in charge, or the person that is in charge, and the board of management are informed of any concerns or incidents of bullying. And please ensure, again, with the NEPS recording, which will be there, it's all in there. But just know this, that if any kid gets out of line and starts acting the maggot, boom, go back to your policy. This is not a camp for going wild. This is a very clear confidence building and connections compulsory to enhance, to continue to build upon our DEIS plan for September. So don't take any messing or crap from anyone. And I think you all know that. You've been at it a long time. But for the new camps and the new teachers out there, fair and firm. And child safeguarding is very important, that all of this is adhered to. Again, the booklet. Next one, the help. And now I can take a break. Alan.
Good evening, folks. At this point, I would like to take you through a typical day in the summer camp. I'm Alan, by the way, the guy that Dahi's been chatting away about character assassination all over the place. I'd just like to assure you that the school did not go on fire that day. It was a minor fire that was put out very quickly. So I'll continue. At this point, I'd just like to talk you through a typical day in the summer camp for those of you who are new to the process this year. I'll then share with you some testimonials from schools who ran successful camps last year, and explain where guidance is available for any of you guys that are still unsure about anything after we finish the presentation this evening. So the slide on screen now is an example, a scale of what a typical day might look like in a summer camp. I have to point out at this point that there's huge flexibility in how you lay out your day, and that goes by your school, your setting, the number of pupils and the number of teachers that are available to you. But once you make sure you stick to the hours set out by Dahi above, then you can choose to lay out your day in a way that is suitable to you. But I'll go into more detail shortly in terms of activities you might decide to choose during your camp, and the other presenters will do that in terms of why would you choose a certain activity and what types of activities you should be choosing and how they can be effective for your school moving forward. But what we do is, depending on your numbers, you might say the rule of thumb, if you have 36 pupils and you have that full 3 teachers, a good idea is to gather the whole group together early in the morning. for that first hour. Make it really fun, really exciting. Go for games, music, maybe a camp song. Talk about the day ahead, revise any language or activities from yesterday, and maybe use a visual timetable to get people excited about what's coming up. And as Dahi mentioned, this is your hour to give out the tickets and the prizes. Reward that punctuality in the morning, and you'll make sure that people are showing up then the next day on time, and they're coming every day to the camp. Use your reward system early in the morning. Make that first hour a blast. Loads of crack, loads of fun, get everybody excited. Then after that, if you do have 3 teachers, what we used to do was, if every teacher plans one very good lesson for the day, a very engaging, fun activity, they can then teach that activity 3 times to 3 separate groups if you break them up into 3 12s. Again, this isn't available for everyone, but for the large schools that are coming in for the first time this year, we decided we'd just talk you through this. So you plan your activity for the day, you teach it, and then you go to a new group, teach it again, and teach it again. That means that teachers can plan in the week 5 very solid activities, really exciting. You can go wild with your resources there. Use the funding available to you to pick up things. Use technology, music, sport, drama, whatever you're going to choose. You've got 5 to over the course of the week. Then the children, if all 3 teachers do that, they're getting 15 really exciting lessons outside of the whole group lessons that will happen later. So you've done your 3 lessons. Later in the day, then you bring the whole group back together the latter part of the day. Then you might do games again. You might do some dance, some sport. That's where you do your parental activities, your library activities. And at the end of the day, then you have your prize given, which is really important, as Dahi said, using the tickets, using whatever reward system you put in place to make sure everybody gets a prize as they leave. And again, that ensures punctuality and it ensures attendance the next day. The end of the day can also be used. I saw there was a few questions there about the learning journal. You can fill that in at the end of the day. Just take 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be, you don't want much grief nor during a summer camp. Again, it's fun activities, a very short time just to fill in a little bit about what they may have done during the camp. Take it home, touch base with the parents about what's happening, and that's a very effective way to do it. So that's just an idea of what a typical day might look like in a camp. I'd now like to just share with you a few short testimonials from schools who enjoyed DEIS camps in 2022. We took these from principals' reports and people who reported directly back to Navan Education Centre and from the inspectorate as well. I'll give you a couple of them here. So we have engaged with DEIS Literacy and Numeracy Camp for the past 3 years and have found it to be a fantastic experience for both children and staff. It presents an opportunity to see the children in a different environment, one that is less focused on academics and more on engagement and fun. We love that the children of mixed ages and abilities get the opportunity to work together. It really is a valuable and worthwhile experience. That's a rural DEIS school from last year. Camps really make a difference to our pupils' behaviour throughout the year. They respect that teachers have helped them and given them more time during the camps. Wellbeing is a great focus for these camps. It is the most important element of the programme for some students. The element of fun should never be lost. Obviously, that's a really important message tonight. It's about memories, really. This is from a school in Dublin. It's about memories, really. We want our kids to look back on the summer camp as a great time in their school history. It's fond memories of their life in school. These are some of the inspector comments then. There was a commendable focus on promoting and nurturing pupils' well-being through a range of activities. Yoga, mindfulness, buddy benches, and friendship trees were among the strategies observed by inspectors to promote positive well-being. The camp facilitated pupils to interact with older and younger peers and with children attending other camps organised under the expanded summer programme. This is a new thing and it's really, really important for us moving forward. And this supported transitions from one classroom to the other and promoted a lot of inclusion and diversity. My last one for testimonials, a variety of learning environments for their pupils were utilised, combining classrooms, cooking facilities, libraries, the schoolyard, the local environment, and in some settings, local trails and geographical features were utilised to great effect. So as you said, they're just some testimonials that we have taken from the inspectorate and feedback that we got last year. As you can see, we got loads of really positive feedback from all over Ireland. People really enjoyed the camps last year, students and teachers. So that leads us on to our next slide, which just tells you where you can get some additional guidance and where it is available. A lot of it has been mentioned already. The camp book, these are all available on the website. I see a lot of messages coming in asking where you can find these materials. The camp book, the handbook is online on the website. Dublin West Education website has this stuff as well. There's links to everything you will need, the Padlets, the booklets, the pupil resource booklet, All that stuff is available online, and it's been shared in the chat below as well. So a good idea, maybe open a Word document this evening, copy and paste any useful links that you may need in your planning as we move forward. So as I'm a facilitator on the camp, it's mentioned below there. So what I'm going to do is I will email all of you in the weeks leading up to your camp. I'll just send you my email address, and you'll be able to then touch base with me, seek clarification on any worries you have about planning for the camp, any activities you're not sure of, anything you just want to run by somebody just to make sure you're doing the right thing, guidance on anything from camp management, reward systems, lessons, activities, and how best to run your camp moving forward. And I will get back to you as quick as I can, Dan, with any support I can offer to you. We can do it over the phone, or we can do it by email. That leads me now to my final point here, which is about the role of the inspectorate. And it's been Dahi threw it in there already. And don't worry, I'm a class teacher, and I know sometimes when we mention this word, we get a wee bit edgy and we start peeping around corners and maybe spying out that curtain just to make sure there's no new cars coming up the driveway. But I have to reassure you at this point, especially those who are new to the camp, the role of the inspectorate is very supportive when it comes to DEIS summer camps. I've been visited a number of times, and their role is really, we love running the camps as teachers and staff in DEIS schools. We understand their importance. We know the students that we're dealing with every day and the positive impact that summer camps can have for them. These students are probably students in most DEIS schools who would not be attending the cool camps or the FEI soccer camps or the athletics camps that other children are attending, and it's really important for them to have a positive experience of summer camp provided by their school. So what we have to do then as teachers in DEIS schools is to make sure we sort of justify the huge expense that the department puts into these camps, and we can do that by just, when you have a visitor calling to you, just make sure that you show off the camp, show off how much fun the children are having, show off all the activities that you're doing, the positivity that it creates, the links to the local community, the way it makes parents feel about the school, building that relationship with parents. Those difficult parents, often summer camp can be a really good time to build that rapport, to build that relationship, to get them to see a positive side of the school and a positive side of you as a teacher, and you can use that then moving forward as you go into the next school year. It's very beneficial for the camp in general, is very beneficial for the school, and what the inspectors want us to do is just provide that evidence so they can go and say, look, these summer camps are a great job. They're doing massive things for pupils in DEIS schools. We're going to have thousands of children this year attending DEIS camps, and the inspectors are going to go out there, they're going to collect some data, and they're going to basically reassure everyone that the summer camps are a fantastic idea. My advice would be to you, when you are dealing with the inspector and a bit that you do get a little bit apprehensive as a teacher, just make sure, it's been mentioned already and it will be mentioned again, that you use your DEIS plan. In your DEIS planning, you can make links with that to your summer camp. What we used to do was try out things that we were planning to use in DEIS planning in the coming years during the summer camp, see if they're going to work in our school context. For example, pupil voice is huge for DEIS schools, and it's going to be bigger now as we move forward in the next coming years. The summer camps offer endless activities to sort of use pupil voice, to develop that among your staff, to develop it among your pupils and give them an opportunity to experience it firsthand. So that's what you could try to do. That's a simple way of including DEIS plan and linking it to your summer camp. I'll just tell you what the inspector said officially. They're going to visit camps, as has always been practiced with this project. On arrival, it'll just involve a brief conversation with the manager or the principal or the teachers taking part in the camp, and they'll just observe some camp activities as they occur during the day, including lunch breaks, arrival and dismissal. They'll then offer you some constructive feedback at the end of the day on the operation of the camp. And these visits will be used to gather data on the camps, on the quality of the provision in each of the domains, and they may, in a small number of cases, return then in September or October just to find out about the positive impact of the camp on your school and any activities that you've been able to introduce in school as a result directly from summer camp activities. So again, this will be, it's just a chance to share positive feedback. It's just a chance to reassure everyone that the camps are a worthwhile experience, and it's really important that we do that to ensure the success of these summer camps moving forward. I'm just going to bring in Kira. As we met Kira already, she's a principal in a rural DEIS school, and she had some experience with the inspector recently, and she's just going to share that with you now.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. 2 years ago, in 2021, it was the first time, as I said, that we had the DEIS camp here in our school, and we had a visit by our inspector, and really overall it was a positive experience. You know, she was very happy to see the children being happy and and she was happy that the children were engaged in playful learning experiences. So she spent some time with each group. She just observed whatever activity had been outlined on the timetable for that slot of the day. She chatted to the children, asked them maybe 2 or 3 questions about that particular activity that they were engaged in, you know, whether they were enjoying it, you know, just very simple, just questions. And teachers reported to me afterwards that they didn't feel that she was checking up on other activities. It was just what they were doing at that time. She wasn't, you know, checking up what they learned yesterday or anything like that. It wasn't very, you know, it didn't come across a very academic focus. It was more that the children were engaged and that they were enjoying themselves, and that, you know, that there was some literacy and numeracy as part of the lesson. And afterwards, she talked to me for a while. She gave some very useful feedback. She commented on the use of ICT in one of the activities. Another activity had been outside, you know, I talked to her about that because it was our first camp. We had spent some time, as we did every year really, but just planning in advance because the teachers were from outside the school. They wanted to come and see what resources did we have here. They wanted to tell me what resources they needed during the camp. And also, so she liked that we had spent some time as a team, I suppose, collaborating on what our activities were going to be for the week. And she also liked that because I had time, because I was a permanent staff member, I suppose, I had time as the organizer of the camp to talk to the children in the school and get some feedback, some ideas, I suppose, from them on what they'd like to see happening in the camp. So that was the use of pupil voice there. And that was just some of the things that she took up on. But overall, a very positive experience, and didn't feel at all that we were being checked up on in that way.
That's great. Thank you, Ciara. As I said, folks, I'll be available through email or over the phone in the course of the summer if you have any further questions. And as I said, the additional guidance is all there. I'm going to hand you over to Crocher now, and he's going to lead you through the success criteria for learner outcomes.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Ciara. Look, I'm just going to take you through domain 1. If we think back to the graphic that Crocher showed us a few moments ago. So domain 1 is in relation to success criteria for learner outcomes. So we've a few considerations here, but you know, as Alan quite rightly pointed out there a few moments ago, it's so important to think about what you've already done in terms of your school's DEIS plan. Quite often camp organisers overlook this, and it's such a shame because there's a huge body of work already done, which would be really helpful for you. So that's the important consideration just before we start. But in relation to the first point on the screen there, it's important that learner outcomes are directly related to the pupils' identified needs in language and mathematics as well, because, you know, and the thing there is that varies from school to school. So you know best about your particular context. But, you know, the best starting point of all is going to be your own school's DEIS plan. The second point there on the screen is in relation to enabling pupils in your school to reflect on their own learning. And in order to facilitate this, we're going to show you, I know it's come up in the chat already actually, but in a few slides time, we're going to look at the My Summer Camp Learning Journey document. And look, you may wish to use all of it, or you may use parts of it, or you may add some of your own ideas to it, but it's there for you. And the purpose of it there is to encourage pupils in your campus area to reflect on what they have learned over the course of the camp. So it's really supportive in that regard. As Dahi mentioned then, in terms of the vision for the summer camp, the importance of motivation and choice is huge, because as we all know, and we all see it in our schools and both sides of the coin at this time of the year, but pupils are motivated as learners when they experience a sense of achievement. And this really is fundamental when we consider the advice on having pupils as co-designers of the camp, because, you know, when they're involved from the outset, even in the planning and the whole preparing of the camp, it gives them a sense of ownership, it gives them a sense of agency, and just it's really so affirming and supportive towards their well-being. So that can be helpful. Look, the fourth point, it's come up quite a lot already, that the planned learning outcomes make meaningful links with the work of the school. So really, if we are making sure to draw links to the school's DEIS plan, you know, that point will be a given. So that's really useful. There is a fifth point, Alton, if you could just click on to it, please. Thanks a million. Just that the pupils' learning outcomes are planned for, monitored and assessed by teachers appropriately. And look, in a couple of slides time, as I said, we will be looking at some considerations for assessment, which won't be an exhaustive list. I'm sure there's lots of ideas amongst the attendees here tonight as well. Just lastly, when we're preparing for the camp, a good suggestion that came through would be you could turn each of those 5 considerations into a question. For example, are our learner outcomes related to our pupils' needs? Are the pupils able to talk about their own learning, and so on? So that can be quite useful for your own planning and as you prepare for the campus outreach. Okay, so we'll move on there, please. Thanks a million. So we're just going to spend a couple of moments considering the role of the teacher in the summer camp. And we're going to consider the role of the teacher, particularly in relation to providing for playful and engaging learning experiences. And I know for many teachers here, this is something that they do day in, day out. So, but it still is important. Just we take a few moments just to think about it. So the graphic that you'll see there are 6 particular considerations there that are relevant when we're all providing for playful and engaging experiences. The first one being, if we start at the top, that the teacher should have a good pedagogical content knowledge and be clear what exactly they want the children to learn or to experience on each day. The next, I suppose, the importance of open-ended questioning. It can be so useful to provide the teacher with a way in, whether it be through a play or sort of a drama or various scenarios. So open-ended questioning is so useful for that. When we think about resources, and from speaking to teachers that have been involved in the program for quite a while, quality over quantity in terms of picking an appropriate resources is so important. It's not that you need to be getting vast amount of resources. It's more that you're having a good think about what you're going to use and how you're going to use it. But I suppose, yeah, the whole emphasis on quality over quantity is key here. The next one as well is, again, it's context-based. It's that you'd create scenarios based on the children that you're working with, and you know best, but you that create context based on their interests and curiosities. Because again, that would be, you know, solid child-centered practice. The next consideration is that, okay, it's not school, it's the summer camp, it's a slightly different environment for a lot of children. But it's important that we ensure a safe space for them. And that's both in terms of the physical space and the physical environment, because please God, if we get the weather like we have at the moment, they'll be outside for an awful lot of the time, hopefully. But also creating a safe space in terms of acceptable behaviors. It's important that the children, you know, feel, I suppose, that there's a positive culture over the course of the camp. That's very important. Look, the last one, and, you know, I don't have to emphasize this too much, but just the overall sense of letting your guard down. As I said previously, it's not school, it is the campus outreach. Key aspect of this is the whole point of having fun and engaging in that play with them. I know Dahi gave a few great examples even already about the various playful experience that he's come across on his travels. So look, it's just the whole thing about not being afraid to let your guard down and enjoy the process with the children. So we'll move on, just as I said, to a few considerations about assessment. And we're going to look at a couple of ways that we could assess I suppose, the learning and the progress of the pupils over the course of the summer camp. But assessment is also relevant in the first instance when we think about what pupils we actually select for the camp. And then when the camp starts, it's really useful, obviously, in terms of assessing what they've learned over the course of the camp. So there are a few factors to consider here. You'll more than likely also be using assessment information, whether that be, I suppose, formal assessment or your own observations in terms of identifying pupils' learning needs. As I said, when you're selecting pupils to take part in the camp. And then, you know, it might well be the case that over the course of your camp, you have to adjust the learning experiences based on what you're seeing in front of you. And look, I thought it was a really powerful, I suppose, analogy that Alan made there about, you know, this summer camp can also have implications on your DEIS plan going forward. So it's not only that you can consider it in the past, but assessment is relevant in where you go from here as well. So maybe there can be implications in terms of assessment for your DEIS plan. So I mentioned there previously about looking at the children as co-designers of the camp. So in that regard, it really is important that we, incorporate the children in assessing their own learning and engagement. And there are so many strategies for this. And I know I don't want to preach to the converted already in terms of this, but we have some suggestions on the screen there in terms of TAG, which stands for tell, ask, and give. So tell me something that's gone really well. Is there a question you'd like to ask? Is there advice you'd like to give? We have our 2 stars and a wish, mind maps, what I learned today, rubrics, and so on. So look, there's more information in the summer camp handbook on this. I think it's on page 16, if I'm not mistaken. And there are some other sources of information. I know the assessment guidelines, which is quite an old publication at this stage, but it's really useful. So yeah, look, I will pass you over to Crahur, who's going to take you through domain 2. Thanks, folks.
Ross, David. I suppose just to follow on from what David was saying there, I'll be talking to you in a moment about one of the PDST literacy manuals, literacy development. All of the literacy manuals on PDST's website would have a section on them on assessment as well. And far from being something that's very tight, as far from being something that's very formal, this just gives us ideas about how we might get the children engaged in peer or self-assessment and so on. So there are plenty of ideas in the PDST manuals as well on assessment, as well as other areas as well. So before I begin to speak to you about that, just have a quick look over there, domain 2, which is the success criteria for playful learning experiences. I suppose when we're designing our summer camps, we need to consider what playful learning experiences are already in use in the school. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel here already. We already have playful, engaging experiences. We provide them rather for the children. So just bear those in mind. I think I mentioned earlier on, we may refer back to the Ashton framework. We may refer to key messages there for the primary language curriculum, STEM, and I see there that STEM suite is up there on the screen already. We might even consider things like creative dance or orienteering, process drama activities and so on. I know that Kathy will speak to you later on as well, but just an example of orienteering in her own summer camp. So just, I suppose, the activities that we design and indeed the summer camp as a whole is very much as well in the whole well-being space. And I know that was mentioned earlier on. So if you have a look there at the first criterion, is that pupils are highly engaged in stimulating and playful learning activities. And again, to refer back to the primary language curriculum, it states on page 46 that play makes a major contribution to literacy in the opportunities it provides for the children's oral language, which is an important contributor to developing overall literacy. And I think we would all concur with that. Any of us who've ever used, say, Tomás na Hordóige, later on I'll be speaking to you about, and Conversáide, would see the central role there of play in all of this. So the second criterion then, I suppose pupils are active, they work collaboratively, and they undertake tasks that are appropriately challenging. And again, there's a graphic there on the screen grab rather, on the screen there about the PDST's active learning methodologies manual. Some of you, a lot of you probably would be very familiar with this, particularly those of you who have designed summer camps in the past. If you're unfamiliar with this document or with this manual, there's a link to it in the Dropbox. I would strongly recommend you have a look at that because it's just chock-a-block full of practical ideas. Now, you may already be chock-a-block full of practical ideas and you might be all saturated, but if there is a little bit of space left for more activities, I really would recommend the active learning methodologies manual. I suppose to bring you on then to the third criterion, that pupils are engaged in activities where they solve everyday problems. And key here is the importance and usefulness of problem solving in terms of literacy acquisition. And we know that from our day-to-day teaching. So children, we know, will invariably ask loads of questions, sometimes too many questions. They'll debate and they'll articulate, I suppose, their points of view as they endeavor to solve problems. So by posing problems to the pupils, which they can relate to, we can provide meaningful stimuli for rich literacy and numeracy experiences. Once again, I mentioned the STEM suite online resources, and again, they're on the PDST website. They'll be linked as well in the Dropbox. Well worth your while having a look at them. It's a really, really practical resource, not just for the summer camp, but for later on. I don't want to be mentioning after the summer holidays, but for later on in the school year as well. And finally, I suppose the fourth criterion that we look at then is that pupils are enabled to gain a sense of ownership, and that's been mentioned time and time again, I know, and responsibility for their learning. So we mentioned that pupils are seen as co-designers of the camp, which gives them a sense of ownership and belonging. And we know that this sense of ownership as well will aid in the success criteria. Well, how successful our camp is, I suppose, will depend on how much the children themselves feel part of it as well. And this should be, I guess, an important consideration as we design our summer camps. So if I move on there to the next slide there, it's just to show you an example there of one of the PDST manuals. And it's the manual there on literacy development in the primary classroom. And it takes 6 key components. Now, this is not mandatory by any means, but just to show you how useful the PDST manuals can be in the design of the summer camp, and indeed later on, say in literacy development. So you see there, this is just an example of various different activities that are recommended under the 6 key components. If we click on there, we see there that there's a whole chapter there on choice. What kind of choice can I provide for the children? And we've already mentioned that the child's voice is so important in the summer camp. And if the child gains a sense of ownership of the summer camp, then that does as well aid, I suppose, in the success of the summer camp. If we click on there to the next graphic there are 3 pages of just recommendations there for multimodal text, for a wide variety of text. And I know that David mentioned earlier on that we hope that we still continue to have the fine summer weather that we're currently experiencing, but we also know from our past as well that sometimes June can be gorgeous and July not so gorgeous. So, you know, if it's a rainy day, if you're looking for indoor activities with the children, again, this manual provides us with step-by-step approaches to the use of multimodal text, are really kind of enriching experiences for the children, not just in oral language, but say in developing comprehension strategies as well. Lessons could take 20 or 30 minutes. It could be a lovely part of your timetable as well, you know, if we need to keep the children indoors, nor legadia. So I'm going to move on then, just to speak to in the next slide there about play and playful learning. And not a whole lot to say here, really, that's new. I mean, I think any of you attending tonight could probably deliver this slide for me, but just a very nice quote there from Peter Gray in Free to Learn. He says that children are designed by nature to learn through self-directed play and exploration. So we look there at the central characteristics there of play and playful learning. There are a number of characteristics which are in common in play. So I suppose the first one then is that play is active, and children use their bodies and minds in their play. They interact with the environment, with the material, and with each other as well. Now, when I look at the second one there about being adventurous and risky, what we mean about that is we're not going bungee jumping or anything like that, but just that play helps children to explore the unknown and to be adventurous. So it provides a safe space for them. And again, I refer back to the Ashton framework. The pretend element offers a safety net that encourages the children to take risks, particularly with their language. The third point then would be that the children communicate through their play by sharing information and knowledge. And this communication can be verbal or non-verbal, simple or complex. And again, that's hugely reflected in the learning outcomes of the primary language curriculum. It nearly goes without saying, so the fourth point there about it being enjoyable, that play is enjoyable, it's fun and it's exciting, and it involves a sense of humor. So I suppose we need to check that in as well when we're going to the summer camps, even on the Monday morning. Meaningful, that the play needs to be meaningful. Meaningful play for children is based on what they have seen and heard and what they know. Play helps children, I suppose, to build and to extend their language, their knowledge, their understanding and skills in a way that makes sense to them. It contextualizes scenarios for the children. And finally then, it's sociable and interactive, that children play alongside or with others. And sometimes they also like and need to play alone. And we need to be cognizant of the different types of learners that we have selected for our summer camps. So I suppose when we're using a playful approach for learning, either in the class or at home or for the children, these characteristics themselves need to be borne in mind. Now we have a link there as well. Hopefully that will go up in the chat box. We have a link there to playful, engaging approaches to language learning in senior classes. So this Padlet again is just full of various different ideas around activities that harness play and engaging approaches. Next, I'm going to move on to speak to you about, I usually speak about this Oscuilgan being shared loud, but we said this approach is across all languages. So the communicative approach it's an approach to teaching oral language skill that's highly recommended as the communicative approach or the Cork Curriculum as its details in the primary language curriculum. So in Ireland, this is the recommended approach for the teaching of Irish. And there is information, if you want to read more about the communicative approach, on page, I think it's page 36, sorry, in section 6, page 36 of the primary language curriculum. You'll also find an overview of it if you're not going to be running to the curriculum on page 19 of your own handbook. So I suppose, needless to say, it's a learner-centered or child-centered approach where the main emphasis is on communication, with the learner fulfilling a communicative need. So communicative opportunities are created for the learners to engage with language in varying contexts. And for example, we would use things like Tomás na Dóige, role play, and drámaíocht, communicative games, and so on. And in Ireland, I guess the communicative approach in Corcruiche Commerciidech is synonymous with the teaching of Irish, but it can be used to structure any language lesson. And I know, for example, as an approach to teaching AAL is that a lot of teachers would use Tomás na Dóige, and even though it's an Irish resource, it can be adapted as an EAL resource as well. And we can just see, I won't labor the point too much, but just to very briefly go through the three main stages of the communicative approach. We have in Tréimhse Réamh Commerciidech, or the pre-communicative. And this is like where all the hard work goes on. I think we're very good in Ireland. Teachers in Ireland have traditionally been very good at teaching this particular phase. It's where we teach the language, it's the motivation, it's the input, it's the new vocabulary, the phrases. When we talk about form, we're talking about grammar, really, reciting, and repetitions. So all of that stuff, the drills that go on, that's all in the pre-communicative phase, where I suppose we teach enough of the language and we teach it well enough to the children that they feel comfortable in using it. And that brings us on then to the second phase, which is the communicative phase, in Tréimhse Commerciidech. So having learned the language, and if we feel that we're spending a lot of time teaching the language in the pre-communicative phase, we might want to consider, well, are we teaching too much language? And very often it's that is the case as well, that Cahoirda Asquelia, Mimi de Giri and Omrica Avuna, the Speder Gordon Sweden and Son Air better Kirushier, New Garishir made at all Avuna I can Biogon Avuna Goma is Kahefata. So again, just to go back to the communicative phase, having effectively taught the language in the first phase, we provide communicative games, role play, social interactions, but it's practice. The way to Carnegie Hall, the way to follow the Gaeilge is through practice. Na deisina a chur fáilte na lenaí and tanga a chleachta agus it was side. And then I suppose the post-communicative phase, or the Tréimhse Iar Commerciidech, is where we embed the language. Tommy Dick Farrer amach, we're looking out for any opportunities to slip a bit of grammar in there or language analysis for revision. We might prepare the children for a subsequent lesson. We might look back just to make sure that the children understand the language that they just learned. And also, this is the time where, if needs be, we would correct the children's language. And I suppose that is key as well, because if we're looking there at the three phases of the communicative approach, the children really shouldn't be making mistakes in the pre-communicative, because they're just touching the den of a shirt. So they're repeating what you're saying. So if there are mistakes, you're making the mistakes. And well, you won't notice that, I suppose. So the second phase then is the communicative. And rather than, I suppose, interrupting the flow of speech from the children, or interrupting the language acquisition or the use of the practice of the language for the children, the idea is that we would step back. It's not that we're letting all the mistakes go, but we're stepping back. We're observing what mistakes have been made, and if needs be, we can correct them then in the post-communicative phase. Mátáisi Valeric and Olas Ellenson, Mada Lesh on Corcruiche Commerciidech, Ta Overtachiat to do support material, curriculumonline.ie. If we just go on to the next slide there, please, Alton. And we see there that there's a very fine and a very clear, sorry, it's the next one again, I beg your pardon. There's very fine and a very clear support material there, Chalabutangan, August on Corcruiche Commerciidech. What I had actually forgotten to mention to you there as well is that there is a link to another Padlet there that utilizes Corcruiche Commerciidech, or the communicative approach, as an approach to language teaching and language learning. So I'm going to pass you back over to David there in just a moment. And David will just follow on from what I'm saying there while he's speaking about the rich language experiences that we provide for the children. So good morning.
So yeah, look, this has been covered so well already, but just when we think about the opportunities and the rich language experiences that are possible through the summer camp, I just wanted to have a pause and have a thought, I suppose, for the rationale behind them, number one, and a few other considerations like that. But I think it's clear so far that we can see that language is just such a fundamental part of the camp, whether that be through an actual literacy activity or a numeracy activity or just a playful activity. Language is so important to access any of those things, as we know. And just, we've got some quotes on the screen there to just illustrate why language is being emphasized in this way. So just, I know they're there, but just to read them out very quickly. So at age 6, a typical child from a mid-ranking socioeconomic background will know about 10 to 11,000 words. At age 6, a child from a socially disadvantaged background may know as few as 2,500 words. So I think you'll agree that's such a profound difference between the two. So a key aspect of the camp is, you know, to try and provide opportunities for children to access, you know, language across a variety of disciplines. And I suppose research shows, but even aside from research, you'll see it in your own schools. I see it in my school, but it's not just as simple as word recognition being important. It's the quality of the child's knowledge of the word, that they know what it actually means. So it's that whole comprehension as well that's important. But closely followed on that, you see we have it written on the screen there, disciplinary literacy. It can be a reasonably new topic for some of us. It is outlined in section 6 of the primary language curriculum, and I know it came up as one of the recent PLC webinars that you may have engaged with in the last while. But really, it talks about the language needed to access a particular discipline. And I know in my own context, I often would remark that maybe the children in my school lack the language ability to access worded problems in maths, and that maybe a low score could be more reflective of a language deficit as opposed to a numeracy deficit. So it is important that we look at disciplinary literacy and providing opportunities to teach kids language in relation to a particular discipline, whether that be numeracy, whether it be geographical language, whether it be through playful activity, and so on. If we think about that, just the PDST, just to point out that the STEM team, they have a resource, and Alton, if you click onwards, we should see a graphic of it. Yeah, that resource is called the Let's Talk resource. And it's really useful in terms of identifying and teaching language, which will support mathematical problem solving, as I was talking about. So just if you click on there again, please, Alton, that'd be great. Yeah, so if you look at, I know people here already are so familiar with things like the Ashter framework, particularly if you're working with a younger class level, but even wider than that. And you can see the graphic on screen, which is a screen grab from the primary language curriculum. And if you recall back to the 99 curriculum, where we used to have, you know, that the child will be enabled to, we now have, through appropriately playful learning experiences, children should be able to. And that comes for stage 1 and stage 2 of the curriculum. But even in the older stages, stage 3 and stage 4, we have, through appropriately engaging learning experiences as opposed to playful, you know, so that whole engagement and play, it's a key aspect of the primary language curriculum, which we've been using anyway. So that should tally in really, really well from for what we're trying to achieve. So look, we'll move on, please, Alton. That'd be great. Many of you might be familiar with the PDST e-bulletins, and they're available on the PDST website. And I know the link is going to be shared with you in the chat box. And you can just see a flavor of what's available there from the screen. And it's important to say that these e-bulletins are updated on an ongoing basis. But just very quickly to take you through, these e-bulletins, they're dual language in nature. And they support teachers, particularly to create playful and engaging learning experiences, which will be helpful in the context of your camp. They're in line with the primary language curriculum. And what's really useful is that they do provide a series of practical activities and task cards, which you might be able to adapt for particular activities that would suit your camp. Just to talk about the 3 most recent e-bulletins, there is one about disciplinary literacy, which you may find helpful. There's one about phonological awareness, and as I said, that is in a dual language format. And the most recent one there is in relation to the transfer of skills and transcurricular. So that's really useful. Just on the next slide, we do have these 2 screen grabs are from e-bulletin number 9, which in the context of the Campus Area is really useful, because e-bulletin number 9 looks at motivation. And we know it's such an integral part of the camp. But what you're seeing on the screen there are task cards from eBulletin 9, which support the use of open-ended questions to encourage, I suppose, critical thinking and reflection. So they're all things that would be really helpful for you for, I suppose, the motivation aspect of your camp, but also when you think about the whole reflection piece, that's going to be helpful in terms of encouraging children to engage in self-assessment and self-reflection. Okay, so we'll move on there again. Thanks a million. So for many of you, and I know it's been mentioned already, you may have some newcomer children, and it's so important that we have, I suppose, some tools there and are aware of the tools that are available to us to support culturally and linguistically diverse learners. What you're seeing on the screen there on the left is yet another Padlet, okay? And the link is going to be shared with you now in a couple of moments. On the right-hand side, you'll see what we call, it's an interactive infographic, and that displays the range of supports that the PDST have in terms of culturally and linguistic diverse learners. So there you have things like translation tools, for example, that might support EAL learners' communication with their families, because we have discussed and heard about the importance of parental involvement. So there's an example of where you might need a translation tool to encourage and to facilitate that. So you are going to have the link to that. And lastly, you know, I know Dahi mentioned at the start, you may have some children who live in direct provision. You may have some children that have joined your school from the Ukraine. And with that in mind, the NEPS webinar, which looks at trauma-informed practice, the information of that is going to be made available to you through our support Padlets as well. Okay, so look, at this point, I know myself and Graham, we talk quite a bit, so we're going to invite Kathy and Kira to maybe give us some examples just from their own context. So yeah, thank you very much. So Kathy, if you'd like to go first.
Thanks, David. Yeah, and I suppose to link into a lot of the pieces that are referenced already in terms of just really referencing the importance of connecting with your DEIS plan, and I guess wellbeing being central to the DEIS plan as well, and the activity piece there too. A lot of schools use the active walkways that they've probably already maybe have in place because of the active school flag and the like. I was in a school recently with a beautiful sign, when we walk, we talk. And, you know, it's just that opportunity to give, you know, even looking particularly at culturally and linguistically diverse learners there, an opportunity to practice the language and to, in a very safe and supportive environment. And also, I guess, like looking at orienteering and the likes of the combination of the transfer of language and the reuse of language, I guess, across, you know, from language that you might use for BBOTs, etc., and then using that in terms of orienteering as well. And like there are lessons available there on PDST PE page, links to the PSSI lessons. Orienteering Ireland have permanent orienteering courses in certain parks that are worth checking out as well, that are available to us also. And then I suppose even thinking of parachute games, and again bringing back to the really basic language of colours and numbers and the fun aspect there, and getting really you know, the fundamental pieces in there as well in the fun and active way. And I guess in terms of keeping costs down as well for schools to really check in with their local sports partnership, I think would be useful. We've done parkour as part of our with help from our sports partnership, and again that's gone back to the kind of the risky and adventurous play that was referenced on an earlier slide as well. And you know, they provide oftentimes dance, various types of movement, cycling activities, etc., that are, you know, just access to resources that are typically freely available to schools through their sports partnerships. And linking that in again to the likes of your local education centre. Many of the centres have so many resources available, the likes of BBOTs and Lego, etc., that schools could access for STEM and activities like that as well. And I suppose just the constant opportunity to use language in a non-threatening way, and in that kind of supported environment, I suppose.
Thanks so much, Kathy. There's so much there in terms of food for thought. Kira, would you like to just add anything in terms of examples?
Thanks, David. Yeah, just to say that some of the activities that we identified before that the children enjoyed was when they got an opportunity to use some of the resources that we had here in the school, and again, some that we might have borrowed from our local Mayo Education Centre, when they had the opportunity to use these resources that we don't use too frequently during the year, I suppose, because of how busy everyone is. But you know, we've used like Kathy just mentioned, Lego, we do microbits for and Bebots and so on as well. And again, for us, when normally, you know, because we're a 2-teacher school, we've got like 4 classes in a room. But for us to have the opportunity to work just with 12 children and to have more time to engage with them using these resources was just really valuable for me as principal of the school to observe this, and the teachers were happy with it as well. Just to say that you know, just some people have mentioned the DEIS plan, and you know, we've been working we're working on that at the beginning of this year, and you know, for example, we did a pupil survey on maths and numeracy, and so in some cases, some children seem to be, you know, like negative, kind of looking at maths as just, you know, when we use the maths book and forgetting about all the other activities that we do. But they did report that they really liked when we did, when we used for digital learning when it came to numeracy, you know, the likes of when they took out the Chromebooks, when they took out the iPads, any apps we used, any games we used, they really reported that they liked that. So that gave us evidence then to build on that in our plan. So again, on previous camps, we've done a bit of coding and we've used Scratch, but we're hoping to progress that to this year to maybe the junior group and introducing junior Scratch, for example. Just again, the different learning environments have been mentioned throughout this webinar, and we found that obviously the local environment and the outdoor, the school grounds themselves gave so many opportunities for different activities. You know, even to do some outdoor art. Obviously, we've been lucky with the weather both years, and all of that is a novelty for the children. You know, producing their own tie-dye T-shirt to bring home. Again, having the resources from the grant, the money to purchase resources like that we might not be able to do for everybody throughout the school year. It's just different. It's more fun, and it's the children enjoy it. Just to say as well that we've always found the day trip. We try and bring the children on a trip in the locality. Last year we went to a local youth club that offered us the use of their games room for free, and the children spent an hour there where they had baking facilities. So they got to bake. It was just this huge big room. There were different game tables. There was Lego. There was all sorts of chess, drafts, and they all got to play in this big space. That again was a novelty for them. It was so successful actually that one child came back to me in September. Her mum asked, "Is it possible to rent it out for a birthday party?" They loved it so much. And this year we hope to. We're not too far from a beach, so we hope to do a day trip to the beach and maybe incorporate a bit of like maybe SCSE language there. Maybe do a scavenger hunt on the beach and so on. So just there's so many things that you get. That what I like about the DEIS camp is that you get the chance to do some things with smaller groups of children that you may not get to do when you're working with obviously a big class or maybe a multi-class situation like we work with here in our school.
Thanks so much, Ciara. Again,
thanks, David.
It's just great to hear all those practical examples. I know they'll be really useful to participants here. So thank you so much. We're going to now pass over to Crothúr, and he's going to look at our final domain for consideration this evening. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Kathy here as well. Thanks for those excellent ideas. The lads were on the home stretch. So just a couple of minutes more there, our final domain, domain 3, having already discussed domain 4 at the start of the session. And thanks for your forbearance and thanks for your patience with this as well. I know it's a gorgeous evening out there and it's difficult to be stuck inside, but hopefully you've found this worthwhile and you've got some useful ideas. So the final domain then, lads, that we're talking about, domain 3, is the success criteria for varied learning environments. And I know that we got some fine examples there from Kathy and from Ciara. So the 3 points that you see there on the screen: extending the learning beyond the classroom. And even if you look there in the drop, actually you'll find some ideas there about science trails or maths trails. Like even an old stone wall can provide a huge opportunities there for science trails. And so those ideas around stone walls, using an oak tree, even using a patch of grass as a science trail. All of those ideas there are up on in the Dropbox as well. That learning environments are used to promote inquiry-based experiential learning, and that they have a clear focus on the target language and learning outcomes, because we do need to be targeted and we do need to know what we want the children to learn. So I guess careful consideration should be given to including a variety of outdoor and indoor learning environments. And again, we're aware of the fact that the weather may not be as conducive and may not be as cooperative in July as it is now, but spaces that we provide for pupils, they need to be active and safe as well. So we need to consider that. And this may necessitate smaller groups than we would typically have worked with. So once again, just bearing in mind the nature and the size of the camp. The environments that we select, the learning environments that we select, they need to be conducive to the development of social skills and problem-solving skills, which we've already mentioned, and the use of virtual environments such as Zoom. And I know we're all zoomed out nearly at this stage, but maybe for guest speakers or going on virtual tours, maybe consideration as well. We might also consider how the virtual environment could be used to provide playful and engaging learning experiences, for example, storytelling or an interview over Zoom, or taking, as I said, taking a virtual tour. I've already mentioned the schoolyard and the grounds, local green space, school wall, an old school wall, the school library, school hall, general purpose rooms, ashrooms, so on. There's so many different and varied possibilities as well. So there's a Padlet as well for maths and science trails, and that Padlet will be up, so will be available to through the Dropbox as well. So I think as I mentioned, libraries there, so we just kick on there to the next slide there, just making use of library resources. And just to remind you, I suppose, what Coughlin said in 2008 about libraries, described libraries as the Cinderella of the education system, dusty, dismal, and unappreciated. And I hope that that has changed since he said that in 2008, because we know as classroom teachers, we know that our libraries need to consider things like the child's voice. What is the child going to be interested in? What will induce the child to read? Might be fiction, might be non-fiction, might be a book on football, song, whatever it would be. That there needs to be diversity in our libraries. Our libraries need to be aesthetically pleasing spaces. I know that last year we got some ideas there from people who would use bean bags and use the soft mats there around the library. Again, that the children enjoy just physically going over and sitting in those spaces. And I suppose not so much for the summer camp, but for later on when we're back in school, that our libraries need to be ever evolving as well. Like if a child is not going to be interested in the selection of books that we've provided for them in September, and if we don't change it by February, so they're not going to be interested. So I suppose the things that we need to consider then when we're talking about library resources, particularly outside of the school, is a pre-arranged library visit. But it's so important to emphasize here, if we are going to bring our children on a library visit, we need to arrange this with the library beforehand. We can't, I suppose, just wrap up and expect that to be able to accommodate us. So we may consider something like a guest speaker from the library. We may consider borrowing books from the library to support the camp, or making the use of the school library, if not a local library. I know that David mentioned this earlier on, but again, involving parents where possible, particularly when we're going to the library, and selecting books from the children's books for wellbeing resource that we'll find on the PDSD website. So we see a whole suite of ideas, a whole range of ideas there in use of the library as a resource for us in the summer camp. So that's, I said that we were going on the home stretch, and the home stretch now is finally just a very brief recap there on the next slide there, on the overarching principles of the summer camps. So once again, we see there that the principles include that language learning occurs in a playful, interactive way, and hopefully we've kind of mediated those ideas with you throughout the course of tonight's session. That pupils, again, are seen as co-designers of the camp. It's so important, particularly for ownership and for the pupils' buy-in. It's learning, teaching, and assessment to reflect and impact on our own school's practice, and hopefully we'd see that carrying on into throughout the school year. And again, we constantly need to be cognizant of the fact that the pupils well-being and sense of belonging are central to the camp. And the 4 domains that David and I would have spoken to you about there would have been, I suppose, being clear and focused in our learning outcomes, in the provision of playful learning experiences. And once again, we mentioned things like the ASHTA framework and the primary language curriculum as examples of curricula or examples of where we provide those playful learning experiences. Hopefully, I know there were a lot of questions there, but there was a lot of information given out as well about camp management. I know that Alan spoke to you as well earlier on about that and him being available. And again, the varied learning environments that I've just spoken to you about, and we got some fine examples around that from Kathy and from Kathy there and from Kira earlier on. So that's Gana Hila Willa, Shinna made Woomsha. I don't know if Dahi wants to come in there or one of the directors.
Yeah, so look at in lieu of Aideen or whatever, the presentation this evening by our colleagues in PDST has been absolutely fantastic. And I have to say all credit to David and to Crahor, and also to Kathy and to Kira for coming on board. I think Kathy wears 2 hats because she's PDST and she's practical experience there as well. But David and Crahor, Mila Mahagav as Shin, and I know Shosas Makanyumra and Rory Collins had a big hand in helping us put that together as well. Dahi and Alan, dynamic duo, and our coordinators, Mila Mahagav Freshen. And Aideen, if you're there, I hand over to you now.
Mila Mahagav Button, and to all of our attendees for attending tonight on such a lovely, warm, sunny evening. An awful lot of queries came in. We tried our best to deal with them. We will have everything posted on the Education Centre website in the coming days. So all of those links to drop boxes, etc., we'll ensure that they're all available to you in the coming days. And we hope we've gotten to lots of your queries. And I suppose it will be totally remiss of us not to acknowledge you all this evening and your commitment to your students and to your camps. We are all educators and we do understand the additional commitment that is. And we also fully understand the commitment that you have to your students, and you should all be totally commended for that. I do know, and I think Alan shared it, Kathy and Kira shared it this evening, a sense of it, what a joyful experience these camps are. They really are. And it is about the students. We're so appreciative for your attention this evening. And to our team, there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes. We're the backstage artists, and I just would like to say a sincere thanks to all of the team here this evening. We really appreciate you and value you. We wish you the very best with your camps. You can stay in touch with us via the centres and make use of our coordinators. They're there to support you. And we really hope you enjoy the rest of the term and have a wonderful summer and wonderful camp programmes. Mila Mahagav.
Mila Mahagav Vilog, Mahagav Aideen.
Slánigi, Ganarian Talev.